Okay, we're going to probably wrap up with this one. This will probably be a short video. Um, we've already mentioned most of the stuff on this slide when the rituals occur, but you might want to think about some other times when rituals happen. We talk about birth, birthdays, holidays, death, marriages, graduations, job changes, moving to a new home, all kinds of other things. But if we think about therapeutic rituals, you might want to think about what other things might apply there, like a divorce or a remarriage or the loss of a child or the loss of a job or something to signify dealing with an addiction or something to signify any kind of change in our life that might be traumatic and yet might need to be kind of normalized for us. Um, there are all kinds of things you could maybe think of. So as we think about rituals as therapy, we want to kind of move beyond the idea of these normative things like birthdays and holidays and deaths, and think about, well, how would we use ritual to help people deal with something that's problematic? So we're going to think about that a little bit. If we use rituals in therapy and they're still going to be symbolic and carry meaning and help us normalize something or help us manage something that's difficult, make it a part of our system instead of something that threatens our system, there are lots of different things that those rituals could do. If you look at this list, and these are things that people have used therapeutic rituals for lots of different times in different ways. For example, the notion of carrying a weight around. If you have someone that you're working with who carries a burden, carries maybe guilt or shame or anger or something that really they need to let go of, you can create a ritual of carrying or letting go. There's a group in town called Rainbows that has always done work with kids who have gone through some kind of grief, losing a parent or losing a brother or sister, and that sort of thing. And one of the things that they've done, and you've probably heard of this before, but one of the things that they've done in Rainbows before, I know, is that after the kids have gone through their kind of therapeutic process, it's several weeks of group therapy basically for kids, is that they have a symbolic kind of releasing of balloons, and they'll have a balloon maybe with the name of that person who died or some feelings about them, and they'll put them in those helium balloons and they'll let them go. And so there's that symbolic idea of letting go of something and being okay with it or being through with it to a certain extent. You can also just use the notion of carrying weight. I've known therapists who, for example, had someone who was carrying an unnecessary burden of some kind, and so they've had them get a brick and put that brick in a backpack and wear the backpack for a week with that brick in it, just to feel how. And there are lots of things you could do with that. One is that you could say, just let's experience how heavy that was and how hard it was. Another might be just experiencing how easy it was to get used to carrying something around that you didn't need to carry in the first place. Because once we've carried a burden for a little while, we get used to it. So you could use something like that to demonstrate that. We use these in grief and in carrying guilt and shame all the time. You could create rituals that were about feeling free or experiencing freedom, movement from one place to another, growth, giving something, loving someone, leaving somewhere, coming home, joining, separating. All kinds of different things that we can come up with that might give us a sense of control and management over something, as opposed to just being completely hammered by it and torn up by it. So there's lots of different things we could do there therapeutically. Now, when families see you, whether it's in a ministry setting or in a therapy setting, those families can present themselves to you with very different kind of approaches to ritual. And this slide here maybe just shows you a way that you can kind of maybe think about a family. Just another evaluation tool to think, what might I be able to do that might help these people? How might they respond to an intervention? For example, you might have a family that comes to you that's rigidly ritualized, meaning that they're maybe just loaded with family rituals and things that they have to do in order to feel okay, or things that the people within the family have to do and have to be a part of in order to be accepted. This is kind of that pseudo-mutual family, that Bohemian idea of a family that has these constraints and rules in order to kind of preserve the idea of a happy family, even though maybe everybody's not very happy at all. And sometimes families like that will over-ritualize, so that you must do this, and you must do this, and you must do this, and you have to be here for this. And this is a family that celebrates every birthday with all the members of the extended family, and you can't miss it. And if you miss it, it's some level of betrayal or something like that. And so there are families that are too rigid in their ritualization or over-ritualized. You may also, though, encounter families that are very under-ritualized. This might be a family that presents itself to you that is kind of haphazard, that doesn't really have structure, where people all kind of do their own thing. They may feel unconnected with each other. There may be a lack of a sense of family identity, a lack of belonging, a lack of kind of knowing who we are as a group, a lack of knowing what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Maybe lots of mismanagement or non-management of emotional responses to things because we don't have any ritual. We don't have anything to help us control that. Maybe some fear of what's going to happen to our family because we don't have any structure. We don't have any form that gives us function. So you may see families that are very under-ritualized and may need some structure and need some ritual. You also see families with very skewed ritualization, rituals that push people to be something that they're not, rituals that make you conform to something, rituals that cause people to feel bad instead of feeling good. So rituals can be twisted and used against people sometimes. And then you may see families that present with very hollow ritualization, where there's a lot of stuff that we have to do, but it's just going through the motions. It doesn't mean anything to us. It doesn't help us. It may not necessarily really hurt us, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just hollow. It's empty, but it's what we've always done, so we're going to keep doing it because we're scared to change or scared to move or scared to grow. So those are possible also. Now, to wrap up, I want you to just think a little bit about creating some kind of therapeutic ritual. And you can just take a few minutes and think through this. This is the kind of thing that you might want to think about, because it may be that on your midterm exam, for example, you're going to be asked to at least think of a therapeutic ritual that you might use with some people. So you might think about what you would do if you wanted to develop a ritual, for example, for a person who's gone through a divorce and wants to have some healing. What could you do? Could you have them do some letting go exercise? Could you have them do something that's about a new life and a new start? Look at the second one, letting go of grief after the death of a spouse. Well, we have lots of rituals already surrounding that. But what if you have someone who just seems to not ever be able to do it? What about rituals related to dealing with their stuff? Cleaning out closets, getting rid of things, giving stuff away maybe to children or other members of the family. Things that allow you to maybe take another step to move on a little bit. The one in the middle there, a new identity as a blended family. What if two people bring family groups together and they start something new? Could you create a ritual with a family to help them signify that new start? Accepting physical limitations after an accident. There's another example. A recommitment to a marriage after an affair or some other kind of tragedy. Maybe you could help people develop a marriage ritual that periodically helps them make a recommitment to their marriage regardless of whether there's been something bad that happens. So there are lots of different options there, and it's really kind of open-ended in terms of what you could do with people to help them. So I want you to just take a little time, look at this list, see if you can come up with some ideas in terms of using rituals to help people deal with problems. We will come back after we deal with the book stuff and the discussion board on the book that we've been reading, the Arnett book, I believe it is, and we will begin with our next videos to work on different phases of life, dealing with young adults leaving home, getting married, raising children, all of those sorts of things. So this will wrap up this first whole section of basic ideas regarding a family.